Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 2002 reimagining of the Twilight Zone. This week, we're watching Azoth the Avenger. Now, Azoth, I believe, is just a shortening of Azathoth. That they just thought that sounded cool and then just used it. It isn't connected to Azathoth at all. It's just Azoth, but I think that's where it came from. It stars Rory Culkin, who is Macaulay Culkin's brother. And when I saw this the first time, I remember the first ever impression that I got was how much he looked like Macaulay Culkin. And then as the episode progresses, you see more and more of him rather than just his brother's likeness, sort of. He has a great sort of shiner on him, the black eye. Hi, Kat. It's very nicely made. It's good makeup. Now, Forrest Whitaker refers to the Twilight Zone as the Zone, which is, again, very early 2000 thing to do, I think. It's the Twilight Zone. It's what it's called. The Zone isn't really it. That's not a great swirl. It's just a production sort of effect they plugged in, and the one later in the episode isn't much better. It stars Patrick Warburton, of course, as Azoth. He is Joe from the Family Guy, the voice for Joe. And he also starred in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Men in Black. And he does a bunch of stuff. He's a really good actor and he does this really quite well. And he's very understated. He's not, huge. Even though he's physically very imposing, he doesn't take up that much space in the scenes. He's very sort of understated in his acting, which I like. Now, Azoth is, of course, Conan the Barbarian by Robert Howard, but they couldn't get the rights for that, so they just made up their own, and they didn't then have to lug out any luggage for that. Now, Robert Howard actually made a story about an ancient mythological king coming to a modern battle with Conan, I think it is. And he wrote this story twice as far as I can remember, both from the ancient king's perspective and Conan's perspective, which was kind of neat. But anyway, the back of the comic, if you look, it says Sleepless City on it, which is a comic that we have seen because it was drawn in Dream Lover, which we saw a few weeks ago. He mentions that he met this guy at the Galactica bookstore. Galactica, of course, being a reference to the Battlestar Galactica, which was from 1978. And which is kind of cool because one of the street punks actually ends up playing in the new Battlestar Galactica series that launched a few years later. The whetstone that Azoth is using is quiet. That's not what whetstones are, because they're stones. And there's this line by the dad, by Daryl, where he says that I'll be damned if I let my son play Dungeons and Dragons with some circus freak. Dungeons and Dragons at this time was just exemplarily nerdy. It still is, of course, but it was way worse then. So that would essentially a slur, saying that someone played D&D. Next week, we are doing some mind reading, and I look forward to seeing you then.